Hey vinyl community and all my music loving friends, it's MGK Boston, that's Mike, back with another video. First video actually of 2022. What I'm going to do today is my first attempt at one of these vinyl tags, which is a thing with a vinyl community, YouTuber people out there. Every year, it would seem that it's one of the gentlemen or women, whoever have the most subscribers, seems to put out these 20 questions, and for whatever reason this year it's 22 questions, and the gentleman's name was Rob Walker. He has a channel, of course, on YouTube. So it's 22 questions basically to I guess to introduce yourself to other YouTubers out there, maybe point out some stuff that others haven't heard, and that's usually what I try to do in my videos anyway. Try to introduce some stuff that you think others might like and enjoy. Which is something I get from watching the different YouTube videos out there. So anyway, without further ado, this is 22 questions, as I previously said, and we'll kick off with question one, which is simply favorite album purchased in 2021. Well, I technically did not purchase this album. It was given to me by my wife this past Christmas. It's by a band called the Mavericks, and it's called En Espanol. It was actually released in 2020, so it's fairly recent. This is a double. You can see beautiful gatefold sleeve. Mavericks been active, of course, since the early 90s. Some people call them country. I really don't. I find them, they're just a bit of everything. And the Latino flavorings always shine through. Vocalist Raul Malo, as the saying goes, could sing a phone book and make it sound great. The band centers around him, of course, rhythm guitar and lead vocalist Raul Malo, as I just noted. These songs are all traditional Spanish songs. From going back as far as 40 years, some of these. And they're Cuban and Mexican both. Raul Malo being of Cuban American heritage, growing up in the Miami area where the band was formed, and they eventually moved to Nashville in the 90s when they got signed to MCA. But anyway, Raul Malo, of course, fluent in Spanish and such a beautiful voice. He makes these traditional songs sound like he wrote them himself. I have to point out La Sitiera. That's probably the best song on the album for me. Mi Olvid de Vivir. Going back, my parents were big fans of Julio Iglesias back in the 80s, and actually Julio Iglesias did a version of Mi Olvid de Vivir, which is quite good actually. But anyway, again, question one, album purchased in 2021. As I said, this was a gift to me from my wife, and it's highly recommended. It's the Mavericks, En Espanol. Beautiful cover art, just a beautiful double album package that. Question two, album by the first person you saw live in concert. Well, this is it's not a person, it's a band. And I grew up in Ontario, as if you've watched any of my other videos. I now live in the greater Boston area, but spent my formative years in high school and college in Ontario. So this was a concert I saw in Ottawa, Ontario in 1982. It would have been the summer of 82. It's actually the Power Play tour, but this was the album just prior to that. This is called Nature of the Beast. This was released in 1981. Of course, the band, there they are. There's lead vocalist, rhythm guitarist, Miles Goodwin down in front. Of course, Jerry Mercer right there. I did talk about this album and the band April Wine in my Canada Day extravaganza video from last summer. You can check that out if you're into Canadian artists. Probably my friends outside of Canada probably aren't familiar with a lot of those bands, so that's a video you should check out. Again, it's called Canada Day Extravaganza on MGK Boston. April Wine, Nature of the Beast, my first concert. Okay, question three, album by a duo. Again, I'm trying to be brief here, folks, but I can't help talking about the music, so I'm probably going to go over 20 minutes today, so strap yourself in. All right, again, album by a duo. This is Godley and Cream. This is the History Mix Volume 1. This was released in 1985. Of course, the big single on this was a song called Cry. Really excellent video. There's the two guys right there. This album is be fun at parties, holding that up, you know. Always like to do that. Such a joker. But I'm Not in Love on this, which is, these guys were originally in a band called 10cc, and there was a big hit they had called I'm Not in Love. There's a version of that also on here. Again, Godley and Cream. This is a duo, example of a duo. Concept album. I struggled with this one a bit. Closest I could get was basically this Cat Stevens album. T for the Tillerman, 1970, the release date on this one. I guess what I found with this one, it's basically themes of young and old. Of course, songs like Where Did the Children Play, Father and Son, On the Road to Find Out. Some of it's self-discovery to do with religion. You all know Cat Stevens, he later changed his name, Yusuf Islam, etc. It's an album of discovery. It's an album, again, too, of being young and growing old. So this was the closest I could come to a concept album. T for the Tillerman, Cat Stevens. Number 6, an album you've not played yet. Well, like any collectors out there, usually every couple of weeks I'm hitting one of my local shops. And anyway, I've been a bit of a completist past couple of years with singer-songwriter, legend, the man that he is, Chris Christopherson. It's called Jesus Was a Capricorn. Release date on this is 1972. Of course, there's the whole lineup on the inside. And the woman that would become his wife, that's Rita Coolidge. She's in here, yeah. And there's Chris right there on the back. Looks like it's some seedy motel room. But yeah, I know all the songs on here. I had a copy of it. It was pretty banged up, so I saw this and it's in excellent condition. I'd say very good plus per Discogs description, and I'm looking forward to listening to that. I'll probably do that this afternoon. So yeah, Jesus Was a Capricorn, a record I haven't played yet, recently purchased. Artists you discovered in 2021. I was really going through a huge jazz phase in the late 90s, early 2000s, and as I've mentioned in my other videos, I was buying a ton of records in my high school and university years, and then of course the compact disc format came into vogue in the late 80s, and I switched over, and for probably 10 to 15 years I predominantly purchased only compact discs. So the bulk of my jazz collection, and it's sizable, is on compact disc, but I've been ramping back up, and I did a lot of that in 2021, buying, not necessarily duplicating stuff I already had on compact disc, because as I've said, it's more about the music for me. I do love to hear the sound, the rich sound of a vinyl record. However, I'm not in the business of spending money just to duplicate what I already have. So a lot of the stuff I've been buying on record the past 18 months or so, jazz that is, has been stuff that I didn't have before on compact disc. And this is a gentleman I had nothing of his, and I wasn't even familiar with him. Master of the Hammond B3 organ, and that's a guy named Jimmy Smith. It's live in concert. Release date on this is 1965. Yeah, just really, really, really good player. It's basically just him and a drummer and a guitarist, so it's a trio right here. So it's right there. This is just 4 compositions on here. The Sermon Goldfinger, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and When Jimmy Comes Marching Home. And this is live in Paris, France, and it's in very good condition. Yeah, I picked this up probably a year ago or so. But yeah, it's really good, and I'm really liking it. So yeah, I probably bought this beginning of 2021 if my memory is still working properly. Anyway, moving on. Question 8, live album, example of a live album. So I did a video last year when I started my channel, because I really do actually really love live albums. I have several. I did a whole video just on live selections. Again, you could look that up on my channel, MGK Boston. And I probably showed this gentleman's 1976 album, Live Bullet. This was a follow-up. I could call it a follow-up, I suppose, 5 years later, rather, no, 5 years later, in 1981. This is called 9 Tonight. It's live actually across 2 venues, right here where I am in Boston, in October of 1980, and in June of 1980. Some of the tracks, I'm not sure. It's a double album. Some of them recorded in Boston, like I said, and some in Detroit. Recorded all in 1980, and the record itself was released in 1981. I'd be remiss if I didn't point out the version of Chuck Berry's Let It Rock on this. It's outstanding. Probably not as good as Chuck, but pretty darn close. And here's, you can see, this is a beautiful gatefold. And there's Seeger right there down in front. Never saw him live. He's pretty long in the tooth these days. I don't know if he's retired, but he's got to be pushing 70. But just really, really excellent band. Sorry for the glare here. It's kind of the midday sun shining in. But yeah, Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band, 9 Tonight. Well, live album. Live it is, and it's a really good one. Let's see. Album from a different continent. This is question number 9. Saw this at a, here where I live, in Metro West section of Boston. It's at the local library. Had pre-COVID, they had a big sale, book sale, records, video, DVDs, you name it. I saw this and it jumped out at me for a few bucks. I just thought I'll take a gamble on it. It was in great shape and didn't know what I was in for. It's one of those, I guess you call it a blind buy. Music de Cameroon. Of course, Cameroon is a country in the continent of Africa. It's actually central west section of Africa. And this is a bunch of different ensembles on here. Listing all the different instrumental combinations would be an essay in itself, so I won't even try. But you know, Fashion Award definitely goes to this guy down in front. But yeah, it's just I don't know if I call it tribal music, whatever. Different percussion instruments you really wouldn't hear here in North America as a rule. But yeah, it plays pretty well. It's pretty far out. Got to be in the mood for it. But again, it was in great shape. And the cover art, it's pretty cool. So Music de Cameroon. The question there was, an album from a different continent. Let's see here. Number 10, album with a price sticker on the jacket. As a rule, since I was in middle school, I always peel the price off. I don't want it on there. I take it off. I never leave them on. However, here's one. There's a store I used to frequent in Toronto called the Record Peddler. This was a British import. This is on the outer sleeve, so it's technically not on the record, but this was the only one, and I did an exhaustive search. I'm hovering around 700 records right now in my collection, so that's all I could do just to find this. So again, question 10, album with a price sticker on the jacket, and this is just a 3-song EP by The Alarm. The Chant Has Just Begun. That was a big single from their Declaration album, I believe released around 1982, 83. Yeah, so The Alarm, The Chant Has Just Begun, and of course, price sticker. A punk album. This is a favorite of mine. Again, talking about back in my youth, my high school years. This is DOA, War on 45. There they are, marching to the 80s. The cool thing about this, it's actually plays at 45 RPM. You see War on 45. It's on the Fringe record label. That was a punk label out of Toronto in the 80s, 90s. I think it's now defunct. But if you saw the Fringe label at the time, you knew it was probably going to be good. A lot of great punk acts were on that label. You can see Talk minus Action equals 0. Of course, they are fronted by Joey Shithead, who's actually now he's what you call a selectman in the United States. He's an alderman for the town of Burnaby, which is a suburb of Vancouver. Again, I think I showed this album on my Canadian extravaganza video from last year. But again, example of a punk album, that would be DOA. Highly recommended, that one, by the way. War on 45. A box set, question number 12. This is heavy. It's 6 records. This is the Newport Jazz Festival, normally located in Rhode Island. For several years in the 70s. Apparently it moved into New York City. And this one is a showcase of all the artists from 1972. And as you can see there, I mean, it's just a blockbuster. Of course, Kenny Burrell, Nat Adderley, Roland Kirk, Herbie Mann, Kenny Burrell, Dizzy Gillespie, of course, Stan Getz, one of my favorites. I mean, the list goes on. If you ever see this one, really worth getting. Found it. It's in really good shape. From a collection a friend gave to me last year, and who was getting rid of all his records. Again, I did a 2-part series on that called, I think it was called Showcase from a Collection or something like that, part 1 and 2. I did 2 videos. But yeah, this is really excellent. So example of a box set, Newport in New York, 1972. 6 record set. Album with a sporting theme. This is another one I struggled with. Couldn't really find one. So I'm going to go with the title of this album. It's simply called London Zero Hall 4. It's the Housemartins. They're a British act from the 80s, fronted by Paul Heaton. I think I'm saying that Paul Heaton or Paul Wheaton. No, it's Paul Heaton. Later went on to form a band called The Beautiful South. You may have heard of them too. But again, album with a sporting theme. It's not really a sporting theme. It's a bunch of catchy pop rock. alternative, if you will. But it's, you know, the title of the album, basically the score from a soccer match. So again, the score of that game would have been London 0, Hull 4. So, album with a sporting theme, loosely there. Number 14, a jazz album. The Dave Brubeck Trio, featuring Jerry Mulligan, which does make it a quartet technically. At this point, the original Dave Brubeck quartet with Paul Desmond on saxophone had split, and I think this is 1967. Yeah, then it was recorded live in Mexico. Of course, Jerry Mulligan on baritone sax, Alan Dawson on drums, and Jack Six on bass. Alan Dawson actually was native to Lexington, Massachusetts here, the drummer for Dave Brubeck in this particular incarnation, and he actually taught at the Berklee College of Music here in Boston for a number of years. Of course, he's now passed, but yeah, what a lineup, and this is just really, really terrific. It was hard to pick one jazz album, but I've been playing this a lot lately. I just picked up this copy a couple of months ago, and I've almost worn it out. Best song on it is, for me, is the Lullaby to Mexico on side 2. So again, example of a jazz album. This is Dave Brubeck Trio featuring Jerry Mulligan, and it's called Compadres. It was live in Mexico. Of course, there's Jerry Mulligan right there, and Dave Brubeck, a couple of cool dudes. All right, a best of album, which is just essentially greatest hits, and sometimes they're called best of. So here we have him, the late great Leon Russell, band leader in his own right. Of course, he played with Joe Cocker, the Mad Dogs and Englishmen stuff, and a great piano player, multi-instrumentalist. Get rid of this sleeve. So yeah, they're all here. Delta Lady, Roll Away the Stone, Song for You, Lady Blue, Bluebird, and Back to the Islands, another one. My favorite on this probably being Stranger in a Strange Land. Look that up if you're not familiar with the great Leon Russell. But an example of a best of album, there it is, Leon Russell. The best of Leon Russell. An album with 8 people on the cover. So right away I thought of this album. It's a Canadian outfit formed by legendary Skip Prokop. And there they are, Lighthouse. In fact, I will raise you 2 people. This is 10 people instead of 8. So it's Lighthouse Live. This is a double album recorded at Carnegie Hall, February 1972. Again, I think I might have shown this one either in my the live video that I mentioned I did last year, or the Canada Day extravaganza, being that Lighthouse were formed in Toronto. So again, example of an album with 8 people on the cover. I give you Lighthouse Live with 10 personnel. I mean, they had a full horn section. I mean, it was a huge band. Big, huge. By huge, I mean a lot of people in the band. Okay, example of a movie soundtrack. There it is. Reflection. This is Risky Business. It's a film from I'm not sure the year that came out. 84, yeah. This is the German import version. Again, I purchased this. I do remember buying this at Record Peddler. It was a now defunct store in Toronto. Of course, in German is Lachengeschaft. My German's not very good today. So, of course, in English, it's the original soundtrack. There's Tom Cruise. There's Rebecca De Mornay on the cover, on the hood of the car. So, yeah, I bought this. I don't know if the domestic version has the Tangerine Dream stuff, but in the movie, I'm sure if you've seen it, there was a lot of good instrumental stuff by the German, called them Krautrock outfit, Tangerine Dream. And as you can see on side 1, all the Tangerine Dream instrumentals are listed. And of course, there's old time rock and roll, Bob Seger. If you've heard it once, you've heard that 100 times. But the famous dance sequence when Tom's dancing around the living room, dancing to the Bob Seger. So yeah, excellent film from my youth. I love it still. I've probably seen it 10 times, and it's a good soundtrack. Risky Business, example of a movie soundtrack. Show some VCLT. I'm not that familiar with the concept of this VCLT stuff, I'll be honest. I think it's when YouTube community people maybe exchange records, have contests. I'm not really familiar, but I've not participated in that, so I do not have an example for question 18, show some VCLT. An album with no writing on the jacket. That was question 19. This is a Stiff Records promo. This is from 1981. Of course, Stiff Records was a British record label. There's a song by the Plasmatics, Wendy Williams or Wendy Williams, whatever her name was, I can't remember. Jonah Louie, You'll Always Find Me in the Kitchen at Parties. That's a fun song. But again, album with no writing on the jacket. This is a Stiff Records promotional EP. It's got 6 songs on it. Pretty close to being an LP, but yeah, nothing on it. And of course, it's record sampler, not for sale. So there it is. Stiff Records sampler. All right, where are we here? Question 20. So this is Show, a 7-inch single, otherwise known as a 45 RPM. Here's one right here. This is U2. This is Where the Streets Have No Name, of course. I didn't buy it for that. The reason I bought it was for the B-side, not on the album. Of course, here's the album that this came from. The Joshua Tree, released the same year in 1987, early 1987. I was a very big U2 completist at the time. Bought everything. And I've mentioned, I think when I mentioned in my live video, I kind of checked out on them around 2001, 2002 was the last time I saw them in concert. I have no more of their new material, but anyway, I'm getting off track. The B-side on this, of course, is Spanish Eyes. That's why I bought this single. So I don't have a lot of 7-inch singles, even when I was a young lad in middle school. When I started buying albums, I was an album guy because I wasn't really into top 40 ever. Once in a while, but I was not one to buy singles. I'd always buy the full album. So there they are, kind of different art. And just a song that wasn't, of course, like I mentioned, on full-length Joshua Tree album. So, Spanish Eyes. Example of a 7-inch single. Let's see here. We're getting near the end. Question 22, a colored vinyl album. Don't have a lot in my collection, but this is a good one. I always play this around the Halloween time. This is, of course, The Damned from England. Phantasmagoria, the name of this. This gothic beauty on the front. There she is. Spooky. And then, of course, there's a cemetery on the back. There we have it. So I'm going to pull it out here and show you. Yeah, of course, they were on the MCA label at this point. There you are, on white, beautiful white vinyl. Yeah, and by coincidence, I just bought this because I was into The Damned at the time. Didn't buy it for the colored vinyl, but it's pretty unique, and I like it. And yeah, again, I only have a few colored vinyl records in my collection, and that's one of them. The Damned, Phantasmagoria. Let's see, and where are we? Lastly, question 22, an album from 1982. Don't know how this gentleman, Rob Walker, picked 1982, but it was a good year for music. And here's a release from that year. It's Pete Townsend, of course, the guitarist from The Who. Everybody knows who he is. And it's called All the Best Cowboys Have Chinese Eyes. And there's Pete right there on the front. Really good album. What are we talking? Some of the songs on this: Face Dances Part 2. Slit Skirts was the big single on this. There it is there. It's a good song. If you haven't heard it, look it up. Slit Skirts, great single. And there it is, Pete Townsend, example of an album from 1982. All right, so lastly, when I was trying to figure out this vinyl tag stuff, I just did a search on YouTube, and I discovered another channel, a guy named Greg at the Vinyl Rundown, and he was encouraging people that had never made a video before. I watched his vinyl tag from the previous year, Vinyl Tag 2021, and shout out to Greg over there at the Vinyl Rundown. I've watched several videos of yours, and I like your style, laid back, super chill, not pretentious, and you have a good sense of humor. Anyway, there's my shout out, and hope you guys like this 22 question survey. It was something different for me. As I've said in my previous videos, I usually like to develop my own themes. Others out there, I just don't want to duplicate what's already been done. But I may explore, there are other vinyl tags where it's vinyl tag jazz, for example, and there's 20 questions about jazz. I may explore that. Vinyl tag blues, maybe try one of those. But anyway, I hope everybody's having a good year so far. It's very cold here in New England, but that's what you get in January. I managed to run this morning somehow. Multiple layers out there. It's only about 20 degrees Fahrenheit. But anyway, summer will get here again. It always does. So again, a belated Happy New Year to all those in the vinyl community and all my music loving friends. And I hope you're digging the rock and all the music. and I'll see you soon.